Today we're learning how to write an exponential function given 2 points. And before I start reading through the steps, I just want to remind everyone of one of the important exponent skills, which is the negative exponent. And if you have any number raised to a negative exponent, it becomes a positive exponent in the opposite location. So my example here is x to the power of negative n. I rewrite that as 1 over x to the power of positive n. And you're going to need to remember that for problems like this today. So you're probably going to want to pause the video just to write down these steps, but I'm going to take a moment and read through them, and then I'll reread them as I go through the first example. So step 1 says using the general exponential form, y is equal to a times b to the power of x, you need to substitute x and y using one of the given points. So pick one of the points you're given, substitute in x and y, and you solve for a. For step 2, you need to use the exponential function a times b to the power of x, substitute x and y using the other given point. You also substitute the value of a found in step 1 and you solve for b. For step 3, you use the value of a found in step 1, you substitute the value of b that you found in step 2, and you solve for a. And lastly, step 4, you substitute the value for a and b into the general exponential form. When you write your final answer of exponential form, you should only be substituting in a value for a and b. X and y always remain as x and y, as they do for every function that we've been doing this year. So take a moment, write those 4 steps down. You might need to pause this, and I'm going to go over example number 1. So for example number 1, the first step is to pick one of the points, substitute it into the general function, and solve for a. I'm going to start using 2, 2. I'm using the form y equals a times b to the power of x, and I'm picking the point 2, 2. All right, we had 2 points to choose from. I picked the first point. I'm going to label x, y. I'm going to substitute x and y in to my general form function. So y is replaced with 2. This is equal to a times b, and replacing x with 2. In order to solve for a, I'm going to have to divide both sides by b squared. This gives me my solution for a. It's just an expression. A is equal to 2 over b squared. There's my value for part 1. Step 2 tells us to choose the other point. So now I'm picking 3, 4. I need to substitute that back into the original function of y equals a times b to the power of x. And I also need to substitute in the value of a that I just found in step 1. We are using y equals a times b to the x. We're substituting in 3, 4. And we're also substituting in a equals 2 over b squared. Label my ordered pair x, y. And I'm going to highlight the value of a. I'll do the same thing when I go through the function. I'm going to replace y with the value of 4. 4 is equal to a, which is going to be replaced with 2 over b squared. That's what we just found in step 1. That's what I highlighted over here in green. This is being multiplied by the value of b raised to the power of x, which we're replacing with 3. So here we're supposed to be solving for b. I'm going to rewrite this as 4 equals 2 over b squared multiplied by b cubed, and I'm going to write this as a fraction, so over 1. I know we don't typically write something over 1. It does make it look a little bit easier here. By doing this, hopefully you all see that I can cancel 2 values of b in the denominator, and I can cancel two values of b in the numerator, leaving me with just one value of b in the numerator. 4 is equal to 2 times b. I'm solving for b, so divide both sides by 2, and b is equal to 2. Okay, step 3. Step 3 tells us to substitute our value of b back into the original function. Back into the value of a you found in step 1 and solve. So that is telling me to take our a value, which is equal to 2 over b squared, and substitute the fact that b is equal to 2 back into this function. That gives me a equals 2 over 2 squared, and I'll highlight the 2 is replaced, or 2 replaces b. This tells me that a is equal to 2 over 4, or a is equal to 1/2. For your final answer, you only want your a and b value, so you want what you found in step 2 and what you found in step 3. And you're substituting those values back into the original function. Make sure x and y are in your original function. So we have y equals 1/2 multiplied by 2 raised to the power of x. 1/2 is your value of a, 2 is your value of b, and your x and y value do not get replaced. You make sure you leave them as x and y. This here is your final answer. So every one of these problems has something that's a little bit different about it. You might need to use negative exponents, you might need to take the square root or cube root of both sides, but this is the general form for solving. For number 2, we have points 2, 2 and 4, 18. I'm going to start by picking 2, 2 as my first point. With that point, I need to use the general function and I need to solve for a. The general function is a times b to the power of x. I'm going to replace y with a value of 2. That equals a times b to the power of 2. I'm solving for a, so divide both sides by b squared. A is equal to 2 over b squared. For step 2, I need to substitute the second point into the general function, 4, 18, and I also need to substitute my value of a into that function. So y is equal to a times b to the power of x. I'm going to replace y with my value of 18. I'm going to replace a with what I solved for in step 1, which is 2 over b squared. B is going to remain as the value of b, and this is raised to the power of 4. This part here, we don't typically write it as a fraction, however, it is a fraction. 18 is equal to 2 over b squared times b to the 4th over 1. We can eliminate common terms. We can get rid of two values of b in the denominator. We can get rid of two values of b in the numerator, but that leaves us with b squared in the numerator. I have 18 is equal to 2 times b squared. I need to solve for b. So in order to do that, I'm going to divide both sides by 2. That gives me 9 is equal to b squared. And here you're going to have to use square roots in order to solve for b. Now, when you're solving for square roots, your b value must always be positive. I should say your b value must always be positive for exponential functions, so you only want your positive answer. We can't have a negative value of b for exponentials. So right here where I take the square root of both sides, typically you would tell me that the answer is positive or negative 3. However, we only want the positive answer of 3. So b is equal to 3. Now we need to take what we just solved and we need to substitute it back into step 1, and we need to solve for a. That gives us step 3. We know our a value is equal to 2 over b squared. So when I substitute the value of 3 into this function, I know a is equal to 2 over 3 squared, which is 2 over 9. And 2 over 9 is your value of a. To write our final answer, the only terms we want to include are the a and b value. For the fourth step, our final answer, y is equal to a times b to the power of x. We are only substituting in a value for a and the value for b, giving us y equals 2 over 9 multiplied by 3 raised to the power of x. Here is your final answer in exponential form. And lastly, let's look at number 3. We have 2 points, -1, 3 and -2, 9. I'm going to start by picking the first point as my starting point. Y is equal to a times b to the power of x. I'm going to substitute 3 in for y, and I'm going to substitute -1 in for x. Now right here, we just ended up with a negative exponent. I'm going to rewrite this as a positive exponent in the denominator. So this is a multiplied by 1 over b. That's the same thing as a over b. Because I need to solve for b, I need to isolate this value. All I can do at this point is multiply both sides by b, which is going to eliminate it on the right side, moving it to the left side, giving me b times 3, or 3b, is equal to a. I'm sorry, a second ago I think I said solve for b, but I actually wanted to solve for a, which is this point right here. I got ahead of myself right at that point. So we needed to solve for a, in which we just did. And in order to do that, we had to multiply b by both sides to get rid of this denominator. Oops. To get rid of this denominator. Step 2 is to take our value of a found in step 1 and also use the second point of -2, 9 and solve in the original formula again. I'm going to be replacing y with 9. I'm replacing a with 3 times b. I'm replacing x with the value of -2. So right here we ended up with a negative exponent again. That means I'm going to rewrite it as a positive exponent in the denominator. 9 is equal to 3 times b multiplied by 1 over b squared, or just divided by b squared, which is how I'm going to write that. I can eliminate one value of b in the numerator. I can eliminate one value of b in the denominator. 9 is equal to 3 over b. I need to solve for b here, so I'm going to multiply both sides by b. That eliminates my value of b on the right side. On the left side, I'm left with 9 times b, and this is equal to 3. To solve for b, I'm going to divide both sides by 9, eliminating it on the left, giving me b equals 3 over 9, or 1/3. So number 3, the one we're going over right now, has quite a few negative exponents. I'm going to be going over another one of these at the end of class, so make sure you pay attention, and I'll also post that video on my website. But these ones do get a little bit lengthy. They're a little bit longer to go through. Anyways, number 2, once we find our b value, we need to substitute that back into the original function to find our value of a. We need to substitute it back into the original value of a is the correct thing to say. So we know that a is equal to 3 times b. We also know that b is equal to 1/3. So a equals 3 multiplied by 1/3. Three times 1/3, we can eliminate our numerator of 3 and our denominator of 3. We know our a value is equal to 1. For step 4, your final answer should only involve your a and b value. When I substitute those back in for my final answer, I have y equals 1, which we don't technically need to write, but 1 times 1/3 raised to the power of x. And I'm just going to clean that up without writing the value of 1 and just write 1/3 raised to the power of x. That's my final answer. The answers to the On Your Own section are posted on the note sheet on my website, so check those out after you practice them. These are both very good examples to make sure you go over for future assessments, so definitely make sure you do them.